I'm John McCoy with 8541 Tactical. This is Mail Call Mondays, the show that answers your questions about precision rifles, optics, and equipment. And of course this week, also reloading. Well, last week we talked about what we need to do to prepare our new Winchester brass and get it ready for powder and bullets. This week is going to be a little bit shorter than normal, and there are a couple of reasons behind that. First of all, the subject matter, we're just going to talk about bullet and powder selection, and a lot of that is going to be based upon you and your choices. It wouldn't do you well for me just to tell you to pick this. However, I'm going to give you a default choice that if you don't know what you're doing, select this one and it'll get you started. The second reason is that in my day job, unfortunately, I have been slammed here recently. Got a trial that I've got to get ready for tomorrow, so we're kind of hurrying through this. Also, getting ready for the Kentucky Precision Rifle Challenge next weekend. So a lot of my time this week has been spent getting the rifle geared up and tweaked and dialed in for that match. In fact, a lot of the stuff that you saw us do in the last video was actually working on the cases that I'll be shooting in that match. So you're actually seeing me prep my match ammunition. It's not anything that I'm doing specifically for the show. Now, when we actually get into reloading, once we've got our cases, getting the cases ready is a simple matter. There really are not a huge array of cases to choose from. And the cases are going to do a very similar job no matter if you're target shooting, hunting game, what have you. Even if you're shooting subsonic loads, you can use the same brass that you do for extreme long range shooting. So once you've got your cases set up, you're good to go. Now the problem that we run into is bullet selection. I always suggest that when you're planning a load, start with your bullet selection. Bullet selection is key because the bullet has the final word. The bullet hitting the target is the end result that we're looking for. And in the case of hunting, the bullet hitting the target and having enough terminal performance to drop the animal is the key end result. In target shooting, we just care about the bullet arriving with enough energy to either punch a hole in paper, ring the steel, or in the case of steel silhouette matches, you obviously want to retain enough energy to knock that steel over. But those are the key end results that we're looking for. Now, how do we get there? Well, I'm going to specifically focus on target shooting, mainly because I'm not that big of a hunter. But with target shooting, our key thing is the bullet to impact our point of aim. That's where we want to get to. And there are a couple of features on the bullet that you want to look at in order to get the most out of it. The first thing is the ballistic coefficient. The ballistic coefficient, usually abbreviated as BC, is a number that allows you to get an idea of how well the bullet will fly through the air. The higher the ballistic coefficient, the better the bullet will pass through the air, the less resistance it will have to the air. Now, high BC bullets will generally have less wind drift and less drop when fired at the same muzzle velocity as low ballistic coefficient bullets. When you compare bullets that we use throughout the range in the 308, for instance, a 168 grain Sierra Match King has a higher ballistic coefficient than 155 grain Sierra Palma. So if you fire them both at the same velocity, the 168 Match King is going to be slowing down quicker, it's going to have more wind drift, and it's going to have more drop to hit the same point at the target than the 155 grain Palma. Now, sometimes guys get a little bit backwards when they're choosing bullets. The best way that I've seen to choose a bullet is to jump into a ballistic calculator. If you don't want to spend any money on a ballistic calculator, you can go to JBM Ballistics online and just punch in your different values there. They have a bullet catalog with different ballistic coefficients. They even have the Brian Litz G7 ballistic coefficients in there, which are a more accurate ballistic coefficient for the kind of bullets that we use. But in a pinch, the G1 ballistic coefficients work fine. Don't get into the error of comparing G1 and G7 ballistic coefficients. They're two totally different things. They're apples and oranges. If you're comparing bullets to see which one has the better BC, you can only compare one bullet's G1 to another bullet's G1, or one bullet's G7 to another bullet's G7. Don't compare them across the board, or you'll get yourself screwed up. So a ballistic calculator like JBM is an excellent resource. Also, with iPhones and Android platforms, there are a bunch of them out there. Shooter, KAC, Bullet Flight, Ballistic FTE, and iStraylock. There are several ones. Shooter and iStraylock, I believe, for both Android and iPhone are free apps. So if you have an Android or an iPhone, you can jump on their respective software outlets and pick those programs up for free. And they're an extremely handy tool to have, not just for selecting your loads, but for actually shooting later. So we're going to jump into a ballistic calculator, and you're going to punch in your load, and you're going to take a look at where the drift ends up for that load. For target shooting, our main concern is going to be wind drift. A lot of guys get hung up and they want to go with a flat shooting round. Well, flat shooting is great, but the problem is a flat shooting bullet, if you have your range estimation dead on, or you're shooting on a known distance range, the range is not going to change on the target. It's a fixed point. Wind changes in between when you gauge it and when you pull the trigger, and it can even change during the firing process once you've made the decision to fire the bullet. If you're shooting long range, 1,000 yards or further, the wind can actually change while the bullet is en route to the target. So for me, when I'm selecting a bullet, wind drift is key. I want to see which bullet bucks the wind the best. Now, there are a couple of other factors in bucking the wind. A lot of times, velocity. The faster you drive the bullet, the faster it will go from the muzzle to the target, and the less time it will be hanging out to be blown around by the wind. So that's another factor to consider. However, don't get hung up in selecting a bullet based on which one has the least drop. Look at that wind drift. See which bullet has the better wind characteristics, because what you're generally going to find is the bullet with the better wind characteristics will have extremely good drop characteristics, especially when you start driving them faster. They will spend less time in the wind, and a faster velocity usually equates to less drop downrange. I'm not going to get into all the math on why that is, why higher velocities will equate to less drop or less wind drift. Just for this, understand that they do. If you drive the same bullet at a faster speed, it will have less drop and drift than at a slower speed. So you punch in your bullet and you play with the ballistic calculator a little bit to find which bullet you think is going to perform the best. And the added benefit is you can also determine which speed is going to perform the best at. Now, there's kind of a trick to this. You need to have done a little bit of research and determine what speed windows are appropriate for that caliber. I could take a 175 grain Match King and punch it into my ballistic calculator and tell the ballistic calculator it's going to fly at 4,000 foot per second, and I'm going to get some really good numbers. In fact, I'll probably get some fantastic numbers. The reality of the situation is you're not driving a 175 Match King at 4,000 foot per second out of any standard 308. You may do it once, but that's going to be about it, and it may be a very expensive trip to the range, because I think afterwards you're probably going to need to build a new gun, and you may need to build a new face. So you're going to need to know about what your velocity window is for that rifle and for that round. But once you get that figured out, now it's time to look at what powder we're going to use to drive that bullet. Now, if you're loading 308, which I assume that a lot of you watching this video are probably going to be loading for, The default standbys are Varget or Reloader 15. Either of those will work extremely well for a wide variety of bullets in .308. You can shoot anything from 155 grain Palmas or 155 grain CNRs all the way up to 208 grain AMAX with either of those powders. Now, it's not optimized for the big heavy 208s, but you can do it. So if you're really confused on the huge, vast array of powders out there, then you can default to the Reloader 15 or the Varget. Now, when we start selecting powders, you're going to want to go and look at the powder manufacturers' websites, and they'll tell you what they recommend for what cartridge or for what different velocity ranges. What different bullet weights. You can actually look at the outside of the container of the reloading bottle, and it'll tell you what bullet weight it's appropriate for and what caliber it's appropriate for. So use the powder manufacturers' websites. They usually have extremely good data and extremely good guides. Also, the different forums such as AR15.com, Sniper's Hide, Accurate Shooter, there are a bunch of different other ones out there. Will give you some very good ideas on what powder is going to be acceptable for your bullet weight. Now, once we've gone through and we've done the homework and we've done some digging and we've selected a powder, now it's time to go punch that powder in and see if it's going to do what we want it to do, and if the amount of powder to do what we want to do is actually even going to fit in the case. Now, there's one tool that I've found that really excels at this, and I really haven't found anything else that does it better. It's a piece of software called Quickload. We'll leave a link in the description down below on where you can pick the software up. It's kind of expensive, but for what it does, it can save you a lot of time and a lot of effort. And I'll explain even more to that when we get to actually setting up our load verification process next week. Quickload will allow you to put in your bullet, your powder selection, your target powder weight, the different variables from the rifle you're shooting, like the barrel length, the rifling twist, and then it'll output what velocities you can expect, what pressure you can expect, and even the barrel time, the amount of time the bullet is going to be in the barrel, and you'll see why this is important later on. It will read that out, and you can then look and see if the bullet is going to be able to be pushed at the velocity range that you want before you hit pressure levels, or if you're going to need to try a different powder. Now, the advantage of Quickload is you can mix and match all kinds of different powders and plug them in there. You can put in stuff that would not be anywhere near safe to fire in a real gun just to see what the pressure levels would be or what kind of velocities you would get out of it. It's extremely useful. However, like any reloading tool, make sure you heed the warnings on it. It will tell you if you're over safe levels or if you're nearing safe levels on a charge weight. If it tells you that you're getting close to pressure limit, you might want to heed that. You might want to be very careful. Now, in most reloading manuals and even Quickload and any other software that I've seen, they're generally very, very conservative on where their limits are. So bear that in mind, but if you decide to go past the limits, it's on you. Again, if you blow your rifle up, it's your own fault. You need to be very, very careful if you're going to disregard something a manual tells you or a safety rule tells you. Now, Quickload is extremely useful because I can look through and I can see, okay, for this instance, when we were loading our 243 rounds, I'm using 107 grain Sierra Match King, and I know I want to drive at about 2,900 to 2,950 foot per second because the match that we're shooting has a 3,000 foot per second cap on velocities. And this is just because damage to the steel can result if you drive bullets too fast. So I can look at Quickload and look at the table output on it and determine what charge weight is going to get me exactly where I need to be for that. I can then drop down below that charge weight and I can start loading check charges all the way up through. How you load these meaning what number of rounds, what kind of increments, is all going to depend on the type of testing you're going to do, and we'll cover that here next week. But I can load all the way up through, I can load all the way past what my target charge was, and then I've got those ready to go. I can know, looking at it very quickly, if the powder I've selected is not going to be the correct burn rate for what I want to do, and it'll save some trouble. Again, if your head's spinning, use a tried and true combination. When I started looking for loads for the 243, I did a lot of browsing on the web. I did a lot of posting on Sniper's Hide and AR15.com, and came up with the 107 grain Sierra and Hodgdon H4035. I'm sorry, H4350, and that's a pretty tried and true combination for that load. When I punched it into Quickload, Quickload verified that it's going to do what I want it to do, so then I felt confident in going out and buying a couple of pounds of it and buying the bullets. Now, if I went into Quickload and punched it up and it told me that the velocity that I wanted to achieve with that powder and that bullet was well past the safe limits, then I would know that that's not a good combination and to not even bother buying it. So while Quickload is expensive, it's a very good tool. I don't want this to end up being a Quickload ad, but if you do quite a bit of loading, it's an extremely nice thing to have. If you're only going to load one caliber for one rifle, it may not be a really good choice to spend money on it, because once you get your basic load set up for that, you're not going to vary a whole lot from what your basic load is. But if you've got a bunch of different rifles that you load for, or you like playing around with different bullets and different powders, Quickload is great. So now that you've selected your bullet and your powder weight, then it's time to go into our loading process. Next week, what we're going to cover is how to determine what our different charge weights are and how we're going to go about testing to see which charge weight is going to be the most accurate. We'll also talk about bullet seating and how to determine the right seating depth for your rifle. That will be next week. We'll see if we'll be able to get the episode done and published and ready to go before the Kentucky Precision Rifle Challenge. If for some reason I'm not able to do that because the check-in for the match is actually on Friday and it will carry over the entire weekend, and I'll probably be getting back late Sunday night. If we're unable to get the episode up, I'll let you guys know, and I'll apologize in advance, but we'll just have to postpone that until next week, and hopefully I'll have a little bit of match tidbits here and there to tide you over until the next Mail Call Mondays. So, as always, if you like the video, please click that thumbs up button. If you're a subscriber, thank you. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe. YouTube will let you know when we release new videos. If you've got questions and comments, please leave them in the comments section below or send them to us on Facebook or Twitter. If you guys have a Facebook account, I highly suggest that you kick on over and like our Facebook page. I post a lot of stuff throughout the week on Facebook. Some of it is just my ideas and thoughts at the time. Some of it's information on videos that we're doing or reviews that are coming up. So I highly suggest you go over there and like our Facebook page. Also, sign up for our Twitter updates when I am away or at shows or matches or etc. Twitter is an extremely easy way for me to keep you guys up to date. Sorry this has been a short episode and we didn't get to answering a whole lot of questions, but as I said, we're crammed for time. Work in the match has really driven the amount of spare time I have to almost nothing. So this will improve after we get past this next weekend, and we got a bunch of videos coming up that I think you guys will really like. So please leave your comments below. Thanks for subscribing, and until next week, get out and shoot! As a little side tidbit, I wanted to let you guys know I just picked up a new iPhone 4S. If you guys are on our Facebook page, you probably already heard me talking about it. I dropped it into a life-proof case. I had an OtterBox case on my previous iPhone, worked extremely well. However, the drawback with the OtterBox case is it is not waterproof. And you know, shooting tactical matches, we end up shooting in the rain fairly often. So using a ballistic calculator on this thing in the rain, with the old OtterBox, I'd end up having to chuck it in a Ziploc bag and use it through the Ziploc bag, which works, but obviously it's not ideal. The LifeProof case is supposed to be waterproof. While I don't plan on swimming with it anytime soon, it will definitely give me a little added confidence when it starts to pour out that I don't have to grab my phone and chuck it in a Ziploc bag. Additionally, the added benefit to you guys is the iPhone 4S does a phenomenal job with full HD video, which means that while I'm out and about, and especially while I'm at this match, I should be able to take some time out and shoot a little bit of video, and we'll see how it works. We're going to do a little bit of a proof of concept video here shortly, just to see if I can shoot video on the iPhone, edit it, and upload it solely using the iPhone, not using my computer. That way, while I'm out and about, I'm not tied to the laptop, I'm not tied to a tablet, and I'm not tied to my desktop, which has been a problem in the past where I really wanted to get something out to you guys, but I couldn't do it because I wasn't near the computer. So that's what we've got coming up on that. It's not an ad for iPhones, not an ad for the LifeProof cases, because honestly, I don't know how this case is going to hold up compared to my old OtterBox. The OtterBox worked extremely well, but when they updated to the iPhone 4 version, my wife has one, I really did not like the changes to the OtterBox. So we went with the LifeProof case, and we'll see how well it works. So if you guys got any questions on that, feel free to shoot them to me. I'll try to answer as best you can. Really liking the iPhone 4S. I know it's been out for a while, but I'm kind of scared of change. Takes me a little while to get into the new stuff, and my old 3GS was working fine until the battery decided to start croaking on me. The new display though is phenomenal. The camera options really caused me to upgrade instead of just repair the battery on the old one, and the ability to shoot full HD video and kick that out to you guys should be a very, very nice feature. So that's how you benefit from my new toy. Till next week, see you guys later.